One sentence summary. Ironically named because nobody has a good time, Robert Pattinson, playing Connie, tries to break his handicapped brother out of police custody with little success. Could you beat the villain? So Robert Pattinson's character is the villain of this story. His brother has some sort of kind of mental handicap, yet Robert Pattinson uses him as an accomplice when he robs a bank, and then it all goes tits up. And Connie is not a criminal mastermind. He's a wanted man. He's on the news a couple of times, and yet he seems to go out of his way to be weird and attract attention. In fact, with me, I'd be sliding under the radar. So if I was trying to apprehend this criminal, what I would do is talk to his girlfriend. Eventually she's going to find out where he is and she's going to give up his information, I believe. But also, just wait for him to do something really weird and have a witness remember him and then follow the breadcrumbs. How do you improve this film? As I mentioned, nobody has a good time in this film at all, apart from one kind of side character who's telling a story about, oh man, I was getting so drunk and blah blah blah, and he's having a good time there, but it's also very, very tragic, so he shouldn't be having a good time. Anyway, what I'm saying is there should have been at least one nice scene where Robert Pattinson and his brother are like having a good time. You can see there's a nice relationship between them. Yeah, good. When you're running away from the police, don't be shouting your accomplice's name, alright? Use code names, that's just sensible. And if you're robbing a bank, don't send the teller away where you can't see what they're doing, because there's a good chance they could either A, call the police, or B, put a dye pack in your money that you're robbing. There is a bail bondsman who doesn't question why the money he's been given is covered in dye, you know, like the stuff you get at banks when people try to rob it. Robert Pattinson doesn't have enough money, so he's like, okay, give me the money back, Mr. Bail Bondsman, and I'll go and get some more. And the guy's like, no, that doesn't leave my safe. If you're not providing the service, give him your money back, you criminal man. Connie, Robert Pattinson, goes out of his way to tell some weird story at the hospital to a cop who he thinks is guarding his brother's room about the TV that switches itself on and off. This is what I'm saying, man. Stop being weird. Just ask the cop, oh, do you know where the bathrooms are? Because we've just seen you ask someone else, so then we would know that you're lying and you're using it as an opportunity to do some recon. After breaking a random guy out of hospital, side note, he doesn't even, when he breaks into the room and what he thinks is his brother's face is all bandaged up and he's asleep, he doesn't even go like, Nick, wake up, ah! He just like bundles him into a wheelchair and off he sods, but there you go. Anyway, so he's trying to get the guy onto a bus and he makes a thing of like, oh, can I go on the bus first because my brother's cold and he hasn't even got a jacket, even though he's got a jacket over it. And you know, everyone else leaving the hospital is also sick and vulnerable, but whatever. And then the bus driver's like, hey, I didn't know there was going to be a fourth stop. The guy made such a song and dance of getting on the bus, why don't you remember him? There is an old lady who invites Robert Pattinson and a man with a bandaged up face who he thinks is his brother into her house, and she seems foolish because she's like, hey, you can use the phone, okay, he can spend the night, blah blah blah. I'm going to take these sleeping tablets and be unconscious for 6 hours. Don't do anything stupid. At that same house, Robert Pattinson, in an attempt to hide his identity, dyes his hair like bright blonde or something like that, I think it was. Stop drawing attention to yourself, Robert Pattinson, right? Just shave your head or do a different style, because he had a shaved head in the mugshot, actually, that doesn't make sense. Get rid of the beard, whatever. There's another bit, you know, questionable choices here. Robert Pattinson, to distract the old lady, her granddaughter, from seeing the news where his face is on there as a wanted man, starts making out with her. And I think she's 16 years old, alright? It's not okay, right? You should have just turned the TV, changed the channel or something like that, honestly. There's an oddly long story from a guy I think called Ray, maybe not. He's the guy that Robert Pattinson accidentally breaks out of the hospital. And he's telling a story about how he got out of jail, he had a drink, he did some drugs, he went to an arcade, he got chased by the police, he jumped out of a moving taxi. And the story goes on for like 5 minutes and it's very strange. Anywho, Robert Pattinson and this guy Ray, maybe, they beat up a guy at an amusement park thing to try and find some stashed money and drugs. And then they dress up in the security guard's clothes. When the police come, because he's already called the police, they're like, oh, this is the guy that broke in. Take him away, boys. And then they hang out at that guy's house. What happens if he gets released from prison or hospital or jail or wherever he ended up, and he goes home and you're sitting there waiting for him? Seems like it could be a bit awkward. Why did the police swarm that apartment building? Because even if the security guard had regained his senses because he'd been dosed with LSD and then had explained, I work for the amusement park, those guys stole my clothes and framed me, they wouldn't automatically assume, well, he's been hanging out at the security guard's house all night, let's get him. Odd. Robert Pattinson, when he's talking to his girlfriend character, is shown to have an affinity for dogs, I think it is, because he's cuddling up on a bed with one. But he's also got his shoes on, so he's scum of the earth. Scum of the earth, shoes on the bed. When at the amusement park, Robert Pattinson destroys a hard drive that's got the CCTV footage on it, why didn't he just scroll back to the day before, look where the guys had stashed the drugs and the LSD, and then go and find it, then smash it up? Don't know. Robert Pattinson, at the end of the film, after the police swarm that building, I'm jumping around all over the place. You see from maybe Ray's perspective, you're looking down several stories and you see Robert Pattinson running around, he finally gets caught. Why was there no close-up of Robert Pattinson as he was being caught by the police? Strange. You also spend an oddly long time looking at his sad face in the back of a police car. Spoiler alert, he gets caught because he's an idiot. And the music was terrible. I read on the Wikipedias that there was an original score by some people, but yeah, no, I didn't like it. So yeah, rating out of 5 beers, I would give this a 5.